Hey everybody, what's going on? Coach Grazione here. In today's video, we are answering the question, hey coach, how do I get my biceps to grow? How many exercises should I be doing for my brachioradialis? The amount of volume per week, the mind-muscle connection, various movement patterns in regards to the biomechanics of the shoulder or the humerus, which is the bone from your elbow up to your shoulder. I get asked these things quite often, and what I'm going to take you guys through today is an explanation, and I'm going to show you the exercises that I personally utilize right now in my current block of training to make sure that I can hit these muscles from various different angles. So starting out this video, what you're going to see is me performing a shoulder neutral position bicep curl. Now this is an exercise that I typically utilize as a staple exercise because I can progressive overload with this movement, making sure that my scapula is always tucked, my shoulders are tucked against my body, and I can really try to focus on isolating my biceps throughout the active range of motion of the bicep curl. Now something that I see oftentimes happen with this exercise is that there's excessive amounts of cheating within this exercise. Now I don't think cheating in and of itself within the exercise that is a bicep curl is quote unquote bad, because I think there's a time and a place for it, but it should not be every single set of every single rep of the bicep curl. As an example, if I was in the gym and I noticed somebody curling a very heavy load, something that they weren't actually capable of controlling, it'd probably be a good idea for them to leave their ego at the door, come back to that, maybe take the 45s off, put some 25s on, and then go ahead and resume curling until the bicep essentially reaches a fail position or close to failure within within the stability of a secure environment that doesn't involve a bunch of swinging back and forth. Now again, that first exercise is shoulder neutral. So the shoulder's not moving, the shoulder's not in flexion, and the shoulder's not in extension. The second bicep exercise that I like to do is going to be anything that involves a shoulder flexed position. So this is going to be something like a spider curl. If you've never tried a spider curl, I personally think it's one of the best bicep exercise or peak building bicep exercises that there is. So the second exercise, shoulder flex position, it's anything that's going to involve you curling in this motion. Now that can be leaning over a bench, that can be stabilizing yourself with your core with your hands out in front of you, curling like this. In the video, you'll see I'm actually utilizing band resistance, and I just have a bench set up and I'm reaching forward, pulling to a peak contraction, utilizing this exercise as, again, one of my primary movements for my biceps. And I really feel this exercise helps to develop a really sound mind muscle connection, because you're putting yourself in a very vulnerable position and you're forced to only use your biceps, not your entire body, like you can on a barbell bicep curl. Third exercise is going to be training the bicep in a shoulder extended position. So this is basically laying on an incline bench. I have my arms back and we are curling in this motion. Now this exercise I feel is kind of deceptively challenging in that it may not look and appear challenging, but it trains the bicep in a different range of motion than the other two exercises. So you're typically going to notice that it's going to be the hardest like in the middle of the movement, and this is where you're probably going to fail. Whereas on the upright barbell bicep curl, I'm typically going to fail at the bottom piece, and then at the shoulder extended position, I'm normally going to fail towards the end range of the motion or the contracted phase of the range of motion. Now I believe that if you train with all three of these exercises, you will be able to grow and develop the biceps that you ideally want, so long as you're putting enough stress on the muscle that it's forced into adaptation, it's forced into growth. Now your nutrition, your supplementation, and your training regimen are going to matter immensely in how much muscle you can build, but if you're utilizing all three of these exercises and you're progressive overloading in these exercises, your biceps will grow over time. Moving on, let's go ahead and talk about the arm filling exercise, which for a lot of you guys, you may not directly train your brachioradialis, but that's going to be the muscle in between the bicep and your forearm that joins and essentially makes you look like you have another bicep hanging off the side of your forearm right here. Now the exercise that I've always historically utilized is going to be a hammer curl. Now if you think about manual labor types of work, whether we're lifting things like this all the time, or whatever it is. I jokingly talk about the country boys that I went to college with who grew up just slinging hay bales, and they always had big, huge brachioradialis, big, huge traps, and that's all they did was just throw hay bales, right? So a very similar exercise, but it's called a hammer curl because it resembles, obviously, you using a hammer, and it directly isolates the brachioradialis. And again, this is an exercise that you can progressive overload, making sure that your form is relatively good. You can involve some cheat reps here and there, but again, I think that within the working sets, things should be as confined or as stationary as possible. There shouldn't be a lot of swinging. There shouldn't be a lot of excessive body English if you are trying to isolate the muscle that is the brachioradialis. We just covered how to train your biceps in 3 different humerus positions: the shoulder neutral position, shoulder flexed position, and the shoulder extended position. Now what we're going to talk about is the number of sets or the amount of times you should be training your biceps or your arms per week if you want to see the most amount of muscular growth. Now, by evidence-based standards, the norm right now is about 10 to 20 sets per week as provided by what the available evidence is we have currently. Now, I can tell you that by my own personal anecdotal experience and being that I've worked with so many clients, normally we see training the biceps and the triceps 2 to 3 times per week is ideal for muscular development, depending on the advancement level of the individual. If you are a brand new individual who has never trained before, it'd probably be ideal maybe just doing each one of those movements twice per week, as I feel like that'll allow you ample time to be able to recover from those movement patterns and obviously experience some level of muscular hypertrophy, because normally after 48 to 72 hours, amino acids are no longer being delivered to that muscle, and thus it can be trained again, kind of irregardless of how sore it may be. Now, something that you want to take into consideration is that you're not constantly training an already stressed or sore muscle. I would advocate that you actually take more time away from training so that you can recover properly before you go in to train that same muscle group again. So in a perfect world, it would look something like this. I go in, I perform those 3 exercises: neutral bicep curl, shoulder flex bicep curl, shoulder extended bicep curl, and we're performing anywhere from 2 to 3 sets, 8 to 20 repetitions, somewhere in that range. It's totally predicated on you. And then from that point in time, what you're going to do is assess how long am I staying sore for. Now, depending on how long you're staying sore for, it can be dictated by your diet. So if you're not eating enough protein, if you're not eating enough calories, if you're overdoing it on cardio, chances are you're going to stay sore for a longer period of time. But if you have ample amounts of protein, ample amounts of calories coming in, and you can actually recover the muscles that you've caused damage to, it shouldn't last longer than 48 to 72 hours, and you should be in a good enough position to go ahead and train that muscle group one more time. So ideally, if you want to put yourself in the best position to grow your biceps, you're going to be training your biceps at least 2 to 3 times per week, utilizing all 3 of the movements that I showed you in this video, and you'll see your biceps grow. If you have any questions, go ahead and leave those down below, and I'd love to be able to help you guys out. Have an amazing day. Coach Will, I'm out. Bye.